It's almost time for the solo film, but it's a much bigger galaxy than just the saga. So what exactly is going on during Solo, a Star Wars story?
How you get so big getting food of this kind?
So yeah, I thought this might be a good topic to cover. With the standalone films, it's a little bit harder to pinpoint exactly what's going on in the galaxy, since they don't fall neatly between episodes. I mean, they do fall between episodes, but it's not like episode 3.5. So what I'm going to do is kind of give you the time frame in which Solo, a Star Wars story, takes place, and then kind of talk about what's going on in the universe besides that, what books and TV shows and whatnot are going on, in case you want to get a feel for what's going on in the galaxy, and giving you an idea of who we might potentially see in the film if they decided to do an Easter egg sort of thing. Alright, so the mighty Wikipedia places Solo, a Star Wars story at approximately 11 to 5 BBY. Now, BBY is before the Battle of Yavin. Pretty much since Star Wars books have been coming out, that's been the system of measurement. If you think about BC and AD in our kind of current time scale, BBY is before the Battle of Yavin or before A New Hope. ABY is after the Battle of Yavin or after A New Hope. A New Hope is the center point because it's the first film that's released. So this movie's going to take place approximately 11 to 5 BBY. Now, where we get this from is actually from an article from the Variety magazine with Bob Iger, and it's kind of an old article, but I'll kind of talk about that in a second. But what it says is, Iger also revealed that the next film, a standalone project on Han Solo, will follow his life from age 18 to 24. The film will include him acquiring a certain vehicle and meeting a certain Wookiee, and you'll discover how he got his name. Perhaps we should take this with a grain of salt because it didn't spell Wookiee correctly. We get the years 11 to 5 BBY because of his age that was listed there by Iger. We know how old Han is supposed to be in A New Hope, and it was just simple math from there. This article is old, like I said. This actually came out before Lord and Miller were fired, so it's possible that just over time the film developed to be something different, and then once Ron Howard came on, he changed it from there. 18 to 24 might not be exactly what the film ends up being, but it's probably not going to be wildly different from that. It's probably not going to be 12 to 18 or 30 to 45. An interesting line here is discover how Han got his name. There's been a lot of speculation that Han Solo might not be his real name, and this certainly points to that, but that's not really what the video is about. I just do think it's interesting, but again, this could be something that changes with development. But let's go under the assumption that this will follow Han from the ages 18 to 24 and figure out what that means. Now, in the trailer, we see two kind of different looks for Han Solo, and I think rather than this movie hitting different ages between 18 and 24, I think it's likely that we're going to see Han at age 18 and then Han at age 24, and we're not going to see him at age 20 or 22 or what have you. I think the opening of the film is probably the speeder scene that we see from the trailer. I think we're going to have Han and Kira interacting in this scene, probably at Han age 18, and then he's going to see Kira again for the first time 6 years later when he's 24 years old and he's a little bit more rugged and a little bit more handsome and a little bit more seasoned, and they're going to come to get to know each other and blah 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 blah. Okay, so 11 BBY, and I will fully admit that I'm using Wikipedia for a lot of this, but I will be doing more than just summarizing the articles. You could probably look up yourself. So the big thing that happens in 11 BBY is A New Dawn. It's a novel by John Jack Miller. It was the first novel in the new Star Wars canon, and it's where Kanan Jarrus meets Hera Syndulla and how they form the relationship that would later come to be what we see in Star Wars Rebels. This was also the introduction of the character Rey Sloane, who is one of my favorites, and she ends up becoming a major player in the Aftermath trilogy, which takes place after Return of the Jedi. A New Dawn might be a good book to read before seeing Solo. Even if you're not a big fan of Rebels or haven't given it a try, it might tell you if you want to give Rebels a try, but it can also give you a look into what the Empire is like at this point. 10 years before the Battle of Yavin, also 9 years before the Battle of Yavin. The big thing that happens here is basically the Death Star moves from Geonosis to Scarif. The Death Star was originally constructed around the planet of Geonosis. The Empire used the Geonosans as slaves to build it. It was a Geonosan design, but around here is when they want to move it to Scarif, which is a major Imperial world and highly secure. This is detailed in the novel Catalyst, which is another great read, and it's the lead-in novel to Rogue One. I don't think we're going to see the Death Star in Solo, but we might hear about it, or at least we might hear Imperial whispers about it. It'd just be kind of good to know where the project is at this point in time. Obviously, the Death Star is a very secret thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if we got some kind of reference to its existence somewhere. Then we get to 8 years before the Battle of Yavin, and that year was so uninteresting there isn't even a Wikipedia article about it. Then we hit 7 years before the Battle of Yavin, and this is something that's detailed in the novel Rebel Rising. So Rebel Rising details Jin's time with Saw Gerrera and the mission she went on and his kind of partisan rebels that are more rough around the edges and a little bit more guerrilla in their tactics. So again, if you kind of want to know what's going on, at least in this time period and what the world is like, I highly recommend you read Rebel Rising. I also recommend you check out our interview with Beth Revis, which I will put in the description. She talked to us about that book, about her story and from a certain point of view, writing in general. She's really wonderful, and you should definitely read that. 6 years BBY. We have Events from Lost Stars by Claudia Gray, where we see the planet Jalukan, and we see how the Empire has moved in. This is one of the main planets in the book. It's where the two main characters meet and grow up, and it's kind of interesting to see, like, this point in time is when there were massive cultural shifts happening on that world. The other thing that happened, so I mentioned in Rebel Rising, we see a lot of Saw going on different missions and so on and so forth. This is the year of a really, really big one. This is the year of the Inusagi Festival. I think that's how you'd say it. I might be saying it completely wrong. This is the mission where Jin realizes just how hardcore Saw is. This is a mission where she goes on and she sees all kinds of death, and it really, really impacts her. So this is a very important time period for her. And then we get to 5 BBY, and 5 BBY is a big year because it's the year that Ezra joins up with the Spectres, being Kanan and Hera and Sabine and Zeb and Chopper. So this is when season 1 of Rebels starts, so it's kind of interesting, right? The first year that Solo supposedly is going to take place in is when Kanan and Hera meet, and then supposedly when the movie ends, it's when Ezra's meeting Kanan and Hera. What this means is, I'm not sure we're actually all that likely to see any of the Spectres in Solo, because we know what they're up to at this point in time. They're up to meeting each other, getting to know each other, fighting the Grand Inquisitor. Unless, of course, Solo could take place a couple of months before season 1 of Rebels gets started, before we know where all the characters are, and maybe Hera could show up. But even then, I don't think it's possible that we're going to see any major characters having a major part. I think, if anything, we would see an Easter egg. We would see the ghost again, or something like that. This is also the year that Jin is abandoned by Saw Gerrera, and she has started to go on her own way. So don't think it's super likely that we're going to see Jin, because while Jin does kind of go off and do her own thing, we really know what she's up to, again, because of the novel Rebel Rising. Now, it is possible we could see some of Saw's partisans. We know the Empire is going to be in the movie, and it would be an interesting way to tie the two standalone films together, right? So we know who Saw Gerrera is, we know who his people are. Even though the two movies don't really connect, they happen, you know, within a reasonable amount of time together, and that would be kind of cool to see. Ultimately, I think Solo is really going to be fairly Solo. I'm actually pretty okay with that. I like knowing what's going on at the same time, and like seeing how these things connect, and like knowing what the general political makeup of the galaxy is. At this point, the Empire is expanding, it's taking over worlds, and it's basically going to a planet, sucking it dry, and leaving. And the reason why it's doing that is because it's building the Death Star. And that is, again, where I think we could see some shoutouts to the Death Star. Maybe not ones that Han understands, maybe not ones the Imperials in the movie even understand, but something we'll know. We'll know why they're collecting so much metal from this world or that world, or why they want these strange crystals. And I think that would be a fun way to do it, and a way to kind of place this film in a larger galaxy. So that's my breakdown of what's kind of going on around the time Solo takes place. I would say if you want to read current canon and read some books that might help you, Rebel Rising would be a great one. Catalyst would be a great one. These would be two books that would really, really give you the political climate of what's going on. A New Dawn would be another great one, and watch Rebels in general. What do you expect to see in the film? Who do you think might show up? What do you think might show up? Where do you think they might go? Leave a comment and let me know. Make sure you follow us at Port Haven Forums on Twitter. Visit port-haven.com for even more content. And as always, keep it real and fly casual.
Cooking can be fun!